I like to surprise myself, or be surprised, or be shocked. It's a lot about, I guess, the unknown. That and play and enjoyment and just sort of experimenting. I'm going to be showing this most recent body of work under the show title Ancestors. It's all been made over the past 14 months. I moved here 3 years ago from busy Hackney to try and get more space, and managed to find this barn just outside Harlow in Essex. In the past few years, and definitely since moving studios to here, I've become a lot more interested in different ways of applying paint, turning it into a very fluid, thin consistency that you can apply like this, or make it a much thicker material that you have to sort of scrape on and use different hard brushes. And it's all, I love it. It's like a sort of alchemy. There's a lot of excavation and scraping back and reapplying, but it's all through this process of layering that builds up the history on each canvas that I don't think can ever be sort of faked. I think you have to go through this enjoyable but quite physical and difficult process of building up this canvas. It starts dictating to you what needs doing to a certain point. I think it's a slower pace out here, and I think that comes through with the paintings. This walk I'm on now, I do every or twice a day, and constantly finding different old sort of building materials. There'll be old sort of pipe and concrete bits in these trenches that I can clamber down and find these more sort of squared off. Ah, yes. In fact, we might take this back now. This is perfect. Yeah, nice. I like these bits that are, I'm not sure what they were for, but they're sort of old lintels, but I like it when they've got a square base on one side and a sort of rugged on the others, and they make great plinths and starting points for some of the sculptures I've been making. I've recently started making 3D sculptures that are literally built from my immediate surroundings. I've dug up a lot of the materials from the fields around and found sort of detritus from the farm. So that's literally informing the work. I've been making collages out of paper and found newsprint and things, and loved the speed and immediacy that you could have whilst making collage. And as I started accumulating these things from around the farm, I started piecing them together and found it had that same speed and that like enjoyment to it, and started just building these objects. They created these odd, funny sculptures which I began to see as sort of self-portraits. But like in my paintings, I didn't want them to be too sort of obviously a person or obviously anything. And that made me start thinking of them not as figures but as characters. I liked the idea that these characters had history from these pieces I'd found, and they had connections to one another. Just like in any family or family tree, I like the idea of bringing these sculptures together and them having a conversation with one another in a space that brings together this complete make-believe past which is why I've titled the show Ancestors. When I was a kid, I used to love a TV programme called It's a Bitzer, and it was a warehouse filled with so many materials that you could make anything, like absolutely anything. And I love the idea of being able to do that. I never went on the programme, and I've accidentally realised that I've now turned my studio into the It's a Bitzer. One of the reasons I've really enjoyed making the sculpture as well as a brand new thing is I was never taught how to make sculpture. I'm making it up as I go along. And I really thrive with this kind of unknown. As a kid, I was classically trained on the piano, but I was always so jealous of being with my friends who they could sit around and jam. I could never loosen up and just allow myself to make mistakes. And I've always carried that on into my studio practice, because when you don't know what you're doing, there are no wrongs. And that's when I think you get the most exciting results. That, and through play and enjoyment and just sort of experimenting.